Welcome to the Rough Characters podcast. I am your host, Philip Overby,
And I'm John Palladino.
and this is our episode. We're going to talk about House of the Dragon, episodes 1 through 10 of season 1. Not episode by episode, but more of our general feelings about various things that happened. And this will be an extended discussion, so this will not be a typical episode. It will have no news, no game, nothing but straight fire and blood, mostly John's blood. But we both are going to give our thoughts about the House of the Dragon season 1 and outline various things that we liked, didn't like, and what our expectations are going forward. But first, let's talk about our expectations going into this show, being that it was a spinoff of sorts for Game of Thrones. John, how are you feeling going into first episode of the House of the Dragon?
Well, I'll be very honest, Phil. Uh,
Of course.
I watched Game of Thrones as it aired, like many people, and season 7 and 8, I specifically 8, I thought was some of the worst TV I'd ever seen, and the ending was just so abysmal. There's so many things I hated about the ending that Um, I basically was like, okay, I think I'm done with Westeros unless Martin releases another book. Uh, and then they announced all these spin-off shows, and I was like, I really want to be interested in these shows, but I'm just so pissed off at them. Admittedly, I think I was throwing some of my anger for the showrunners to like the just the name of Westeros in general. So that might have been a big problem. But when House of the Dragon was announced and an air date was given, I think it was a few days before the show started, and I was like, I wasn't planning on watching this, but I'm going to try it just because I was already subscribed to HBO, so might as well. And I had incredibly low expectations, but I had very high hopes. And then the show opens with the text on the black screen that mentions, I can't remember exactly what it says. I think it said like 172 years before Daenerys Targaryen, I think. And right then I was like, God damn it. They're already referencing this stupid ending, basically.
Mm.
Um, and that really annoyed me. And then 2 seconds in, and you have like the show starting, and all my anger and hatred was immediately washed away. And so that's kind of how I was going into it. What about you?
I also had kind of, well, as with any show, I always go into it without getting too excited about it. Anytime I watch episode 1, season 1 of anything, I'm like, well, let's give this a try. I almost always say that, like if I'm about to watch something, let's try it and see how it is. Um, I didn't really put my feelings about Game of Thrones onto it too much because um, I knew it was different showrunners and I knew it was different source material, and it was source material I'm not familiar with, even though I have Fire and Blood. The book, I haven't read it enough to know really what's going on, so I didn't know anything. And I remember watching episode one, and I was just kind of like, "This is okay." I don't remember being really that pumped about it. And then I think I watched it a second time for some reason. And the second time I watched the first episode, I liked it a lot better. I was like, oh, I actually like this a lot better the second time for some reason. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just in a bad mood or something when I watched the first episode, but pretty much after the first episode, I was all in from the second episode forward. So I kind of left behind all the Game of Thrones thoughts and was just like, all right, this is a new show. This new, everything's, relatively new, relatively familiar because it's in the same world. And I really liked a lot of the characters starting out. So that helped me kind of stick with it better than I probably would have if, you know, the characters were kind of like just copies of Game of Thrones characters, because they could have very well. I mean, people already kind of say, "Oh, Alicent's like the new Cersei," or Rhaenyra is like the new Daenerys, or whatever. But I kind of feel like they have their own quirks and goals and aspirations and stuff like that. So they don't feel like just copies of previous Game of Thrones characters. So early on, I think Damon was probably my favorite character from the early episodes. And I think from there, he just kind of dipped off. I don't know if that was an intentional thing, or it was just kind of, to me, it was a little odd that Damon was like, oh, Damon's going to be like the star of the show or whatever. And then for whatever reason, just later episodes kind of
Yeah.
focus more on the kids, and he was more of a background character, I guess.
So I would like to talk about Damon for a minute because you're right. He had such a strong start. He had the beginning of the show. He was kind of like an asshole. He did a lot of kind of weird shit. He was kind of drunk a lot with prostitutes, and then the whole thing with him and Rhaenyra happened. He killed his former wife, and then he had that battle with the crab feeder, and it's something I totally forgot until I was looking at kind of a recap thing that I was reading, and he named himself king of the stepstones, I think it was called. Um, so he had like this really prominent start, and it almost seemed like he was poised to be a main villain. And then we skipped ahead, and I'm pretty sure ever since the time jump, the major time jump when the recastings happened, ever since that moment, he basically didn't really do much.
Yeah, I think earlier that this is another small problem I have with the show is everyone has their names are too fucking similar. I think I called Rhaenyra Rhaenyras a minute ago, because
Well,
there's
there's Rainey's,
Rhaenys,
I think,
yeah,
right?
there's Rhaenys, there's Rhaenyras, there's two Aegons. It's like, I understand it's like a naming convention of the Targaryens or whatever, but it gets pretty confusing, especially with the kids later on, where I mean, at least they call them Jake and Luke, so it's a little bit easier to
Right.
all right, that's Jake and that's Luke. So that, but I mean, even like they have the twins, right? There's the twins, Eric and Eric. It's like they're spelled differently. It's like, come on,
Right, yeah.
can you help us out here? It's almost like he's fucking with us. It's like, oh, you're gonna complain about the names? All right, here's Eric and Eric. Go fuck yourself.
He, Warren, even in the Game of Thrones, that was kind of a problem too. And I think it's his attempt to be kind of historically accurate because a lot of his world is based on history and stuff. But like,
Yeah.
names could be a little bit more digestible, I think, and still be cool and still have the feel of like different families. Uh, I guess I'm not one to talk because I'm John the Third, but like, um, when you're making media like this, it would just be helpful if not everyone was named Aegon.
Yeah, that since we already kind of brought up the time jumps, I know it sounds like we're just going to talk bad about the show, but we've talked off, off podcast about the show. We both love it. So I think we're just kind of getting getting some
We're getting
gripes
all
out.
the yeah, we're getting all our hatred out first of the small things that irked us before we get into all the stuff we absolutely love.
Yeah, these are not things that were deal breakers for me, but they did slightly annoy me or whatever. The time jumps were hard to deal with at the beginning. I think once I just accepted, okay, there's going to be time jumps, I kind of just went with it. But sometimes the time jumps were very jarring. Whereas I think some other people had complained. All right, Rhaenyra is newly pregnant in like two time jumps or three time jumps. I don't remember how many, but she's like pregnant every episode, like about to give birth almost. And that got confusing a little bit, and like keeping up with when they kept changing the actors and actresses, especially for the kids, that got confusing. Because there's a lot of fucking kids in this show, and like they don't have a lot of screen time, so it's not easy to keep up with all of them. So
Yeah,
there's
that was frustrating because it wasn't if it was just Rhaenyra and Allison, not that big a deal.
yeah,
But you bring in the other family, uh the Corlys's the Velaryon family.
yeah,
And they have those kids that also change. I think they change actors three times for that set of kids.
yeah,
Might be wrong, but I think it was three times. And like you said, they're not on the screen like hardly at all. So it's almost like why bother casting three sets? Just introduce them later. But my biggest so I have a really big complaint here, but I also am totally going to forgive it too for a reason I'll get to in a second. But all these time jumps were so jarring and in weird places because you have like the episode where Kristen Cole ends up like murdering that one guy at the
oh,
dinner there.
Sir
Yeah.
Joffrey, which is another confusing name.
Yes. So he murders that guy who's trying to basically um, get in good with.
Blackmail him or something, kind of.
Yeah, trying to store information, but I feel like he was also trying to kind of make an alliance with him. Uh, but then Kristen Cole just murders him, and then the next episode is a time jump, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened? I was so excited to see all the fallout of what was going to happen after that episode,
Yeah,
and
nothing happened.
nothing. Yeah, it's just like, well, nothing happened, and that's fine. It's not like the worst thing ever. But that was my biggest problem with a bunch of the time jumps is like they could have easily extended the first season and had the resolutions to a lot of the things that they skipped through. They could have had more time with the kids as they were younger, so maybe we got better idea of the relationships that were happening. Uh, and I'm talking about the kids being Rhaenyra and Alicenta's kids, but you could also make the argument for their children too could have had um, kind of a longer time before they did that time jump as well. Um, but if they did that, you probably would have had season one be like all before some of these time jumps. And I haven't read Fire and Blood, but from what I know, basically everyone's that I've heard talk about this claim that the showrunners are just trying to get to a section of the book called the Dance of Dragons, I guess,
Yeah.
which is where like a majority of the action happens. And so I'm going to be forgiving because I get that they're trying to kind of fast forward to this place, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. It's just I think there could have been a few steps to make it a little less jarring, like maybe show the immediate after effects of what happens when Sir Kristen Cole kills someone. Maybe show a little bit of the developing relationship between Alicent and him after that, because if you remember, he goes outside, he's about to kill himself, but that's
Yeah.
when she shows up, and then he doesn't, and then there's a time jump, and then all of a sudden they're best friends, which is fine. You'd imagine after I can't remember if that was the 10-year time jump or what. There were so many time jumps here, but then they're like best friends basically, and you know that they are really close, but you never see them actually be really close.
Yeah. It's those kind of things that were that made this like slightly less than perfect for me.
Yeah, yeah, I
Otherwise,
agree.
almost everything is perfect. Like the characters, the interactions, the acting, even the uh, CGI, which I'm not always a big fan of CGI. Like a lot of the dragons look really cool and distinct.
Yep.
They don't look the same. They have kind of their own personalities even, which I think is kind of cool. Like usually I think with the Game of Thrones, I always just felt like the three dragons were interchangeable. Like I didn't feel like any of the three dragons had their own personality or own special look or anything.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the and I it's been a while since I've seen Game of Thrones, but the dragons looked like identical, just a color change, right?
Yeah, from what I gather, it was almost like Mortal Kombat's like Sub Zero, Scorpion, and or whatever. They just palette changed the color. But like I'm trying to think of all the different dragon names, but like the really big fucking one, Vigar, I guess his name. Uh that one's scary as fuck.
I can't remember the name, but that was Aegon's dragon, right?
Yeah, Aegon's dragon is
Yeah, that thing
Vagar,
is
the big one.
just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You don't, so I didn't actually know until that, the episode.
Yeah.
I didn't actually know the size disparity in dragons until it shows how massive that one dragon is and how puny the other dragon is, which is funny because the small dragon it's not small. It is not a small, like it's a small dragon, but when you have a person standing next to it, the thing is still huge.
Yeah.
And then you see it right behind that, the wall thing is just standing there, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
what?
It's like a size of a whale or something almost. And then there's the other one that is like a really ugly fucking dragon that um
At the end when Damon is getting it.
yeah, he's singing to it or something.
Mhm. Yeah, that
Uh
one looked nasty as hell.
It's named something like Viramax or something. Sounds like a company's name. Viramax, Veramax or something.
Nice. That dragon is cool, though. I gotta say, it just looked ugly as hell.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like the second. I think it's supposed to be like the second biggest dragon in the world.
Yeah, I remember hearing that somewhere. And I think Damon specifically was going after it after
Oh,
the Lions are kind of
not Veramax. Vermithor, that's its name.
over. Okay.
I was close.
Yeah, okay.
Close
The
enough.
listeners are already turning off to come find you and crucify you for that egregious mistake.
Yeah. Vermithor, Veramax.
You know what? If there's one franchise where people can be wrong on the names, it's this one, damn it.
Yeah. I mean, especially the dragon names are a little. I mean, even the dragon names have a lot of X's in their names. You know, Serax and Aurochs. I mean, they're all
And
names like that.
to be fair, they don't really, I didn't think anyway, as a casual fan slash viewer, I didn't think that they did a great job of introducing the dragons so that you remembered their names so much. Sometimes they'd say a dragon's name, and I'd just be like, "Yep, okay, that's a dragon," but I don't know like whose. um, so that might have just been a me problem, but I'm hoping that because the show did so well, they have the budget to show dragons a bit more in the next season, so that maybe we can become more acclimated to each one and who they belong to. I mean, when you see the person like on their dragon or next to it, you're like, oh, okay, they're together, obviously. Um, but when they're in like a throne room talking about, I don't, Arax or whatever its name is, and you're just like, who? Whose dragon is that? uh, but that's to be fair. I didn't have this problem with the Game of Thrones, but I imagine newcomers to the show who hadn't read the books were very confused with a lot of the characters. And so I imagine that might just be me not having read Fire and Blood. But I'm enjoying the show so much with not having the prior knowledge that I'm not going to read it.
Yeah, I think even if you read Fire and Blood, it wouldn't make the dragon stand out any their names anyway. What the thing I liked about the dragons, which was actually a change from this is one change I do know that is from Fire and Blood that got spoiled for me. Uh, but it's not. I don't care. But basically, um, if you're reading Fire and Blood, this is a spoiler if you haven't read it yet. But when episode 10, where Amon is
Luke,
chasing
right?
Luke on the dragon, in the book, he intentionally kills Luke.
Yeah, I heard about that.
But in the show, it's like the dragon got out of control and accidentally did it. I like the change that they did on the show because to me it makes the dragons like more of an unpredictable force where they're like
I think it also demonstrates
we don't
that
know
he
what they're
just
going to
doesn't
do.
have. Yeah, sorry, I was just gonna say I think it demonstrates that maybe some of the riders just don't have control over their dragons.
Yeah, well, I also got the feeling that Vagar is like maybe a little bit more
in control.
Yeah, he's in control.
Yeah, I don't
But
think it didn't seem like Aemond was in control uh at all. You know, when he captured the dragon, it wasn't because he like outwitted or convinced the dragon. It seemed more like the dragon was like, you know what, I'm not going to kill you.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess you can ride me. It did not feel like Aemon won that. It felt like the dragon did.
So I
Looking
like
back on it anyway.
I like that change of like the dragons are like uh death machines almost. Like they're I mean, even Rhaenyra when she's like trying to prevent full out war being declared, they're talking about we have this many dragons, they have this many dragons, and she's like, you realize if we get dragons involved in this, everyone's dead, right? And everybody's like, yeah, 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 whatever. But she realizes like the cost of it, having all these dragons fighting each other. And you can see just from a few episodes, like the one where Damon's dragon kills all those guys in the stepstones. That's just one dragon. So if you had like a bunch of them all fighting each other at the same time, I guess that's kind of what we have to look forward to in season two, is a bunch of dragons killing each other, killing
Yeah,
killing a
it
bunch
seems
of people.
like it. But you brought up the specific event where Aemond and Luke have their little encounter. And I just wanted to say, I think I told you this off air uh after that happened, like in real time.
Yeah.
I said it was the single greatest scene of a show I've ever seen in my entire life. And I wonder if that'll ever be beaten because that that scene where Luke is flying away. Now before this even happened, I was watching the show with my mom and we're sitting next to each other in our recliners. I looked over at her when Rhaenyra is dispatching them. And I said to my mom, I was like, I have a really bad feeling about this. I think one of these kids is fucked. And I think it's the younger one. And they fly off, and then he lands, and you see the massive dragon behind the wall, which was, oh my god, one of the coolest scenes ever because you get to see how huge this thing is. The whole part where Luke goes in and has that whole encounter with the uh that was Baratheon, I think,
Yeah.
and Aemond. That was great. I love that whole scene. Then he walks out, flies off, it's storming, and you look up, you just see this massive thing fly overhead. Creepy as fuck. And then you have the chase scene, which was fine. Wasn't like top tier for me, but you think he gets away for a second. Well, I didn't think he got away, but the show wants you to think that he got away for a second. And then you just see that dragon come out of nowhere and bite the other dragon in like two or three pieces. Oh my god. I was not expecting that to happen at all. And when that happened, my jaw dropped. I just thought that was the most visually shocking and just amazing moment in TV that I've ever seen. People have argued with me when I said that. I've been like, well, there wasn't much emotion involved. Yeah, I get that. I'm not talking about like how it made me feel. I'm just saying like specifically how it looked. Like, holy
Yeah.
crap, just shocking.
My favorite scene of all time still is from Breaking Bad, but uh we've talked about how your feelings about Breaking Bad, but um this
Eh,
this scene was uh yeah, really good. I like that. I mean, the only thing for me, being a person that watches lots of movies, TV, whatever, as soon as Rhaenyra's like, you know, go to the Baratheons and
Oh yeah, it'll be super easy.
don't worry, my son. I was like, he's dead.
Yes, that's what I said that too.
I immediately said he's dead. And my wife was like, what? Like, he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. Yeah, it
I
was
don't
a
know
bit.
how and I don't know when, but he's dead.
Yes, it was like not foreshadowed at all, but like the hint was there, you know.
Yeah.
I guess it was foreshadowed. I don't know, but it didn't. It didn't feel like it was foreshadowed. It just felt like, oh man, because she said that it's safe, like he's doomed.
Let's talk a little bit about like characters that we really like. I thought a lot about this and I think Allison is actually like a really interesting character.
Is
And
she one of your favorites?
I think she's one of my top favorites just because I like the fact that she she always like tries to do the right thing, sort of, or what she
Mm.
sort of thinks is the right thing, but she's just following whatever, like she's a rule follower. Like this is the tradition, this is this, but I just follow all the rules. And I like the fact that like someone who follows all the rules is actually like doing shitty things, because usually when you have a show it's like the person that follows all the rules is like kind of like the good guy usually, like Ned Stark, or like even like some of the knights that are on the show that
Did
always
she
follow.
did she follow all the rules though?
Well, it's like a twisting, it's like a slight twisting of the rule, I think, is what she kind of does. Like just certain things she does, and then like when something happens, she's like, "Well, I didn't want that to happen." It's just like that kind of reaction. Like you kind of did want that to happen, but you didn't outright say you wanted it to happen.
Right. I would say that I think overall you're right, but there's one major event where I don't think that happened, and that was when she completely ignored the fact that Rhaenyra was really the heir, you know,
Yeah, but
despite.
I think for her logic is, well, that's the interesting thing, because I don't know, like when Viserys whispers to her, I want, something about Aegon. I don't know if she actually misinterprets it, or just hears what she wants to hear, because it's not really clear. I
Yeah, I was also wondering if it was possible that that scene that we see, if that actually happened, or if that's like
well,
just what she's telling people that happened. I
people
mean, I
have
know we saw it, but
people have complained a little bit that have read the book, said that like the show kind of makes the green faction like the bad guys and the black faction is like the good guys in a way, but they say, Alicent's pretty shitty in the book, much shittier than she's portrayed on the show. And then Damon and Rhaenyra are equally terrible. So like they're all terrible. It's just like they're slightly less terrible.
yeah, it sounds like they tried to make both sides likable.
Yeah, and
Uh,
in different ways, I guess.
which I think is fine. I think it makes people more invested in both sides if they like them.
But to me, Allison is like one of the more interesting figures on the show, in that she seems, to me, she seems more complex than just like she wants power or whatever. It's like there's more. like when she gives the page of the book that Rhaenyra ripped out when they were, teenagers or whatever, as like a
Right.
final peace offering. It's like, is she using it to manipulate her, or is she actually genuinely trying to preserve something?
Right.
That's the thing that's interesting about those two characters, is because you never really know. They don't like each other for various reasons, but they kind of cling on to that old friendship that they had, or like, um,
Although she was also trying to murder them at the same time, right?
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but um, so you do you think Alicent is your like most favorite character?
Uh, I mean, I can't think of another one that like. I mean, Rhaenyra would be second if I had to say.
This is an interesting conversation because if you were to ask me my favorite characters, I would list, I don't know, 5 or 6 before I even thought about Alicent, I think.
Hmm.
I love Alicent. She's a great character, but there's just so many characters I like way more. But my number one, and this is gonna sound weird, I think,
I think I know who you're gonna say because
but it's
you're a creepy fucker like this guy probably.
no, it's not a guy.
Oh, it's not a
But
guy.
um, but it was close. It was close. I think that okay, no, you know what? You're right. Larry's is my favorite character. Um,
I knew it.
okay, but he's not in the show enough for him to be really be my favorite character yet. Um, but I loved Larry's. He's easily my favorite character for sure. But because of the lack of visibility, it's hard for me to say like he's my number one. Um, he will become my number one, I think, if he's in it more and more. I love that character. He's fucking just awesome. He's such an evil dick and he's so clever. I love it. But
He's
no.
he's like to me, I liked a lot of aspects about him until you find out he's like a foot fetish guy. And
See, that's when I liked him even more. Not
but
that I have a foot fetish thing and I'll never understand that, but I just loved that there was like
that just pushes it over the edge almost. It's like, all right, he's a creepy fucker, we get it. And then like, oh, he, gets turned on by the queen's feet or whatever, then you're like,
but do you know why I
eh,
like that? Because it makes so much sense. Because think about it. He has fucked up feet. He's never, I mean, I don't know if it's because of that, but I like to think it's because he has like screwed up feet and then he's like, look at these perfect feet or whatever. But I also think it gives a little bit more, I mean, it's gross, but a little bit more depth to his character. It's not just like he's not just going for power. He's also going for feet. There's probably some other stuff there too. I don't know. You can't actually. I mean, at least I wasn't thinking this, but you can't actually think that he's giving all this information and just for some feet, right? There's got to be some more there
yeah,
somewhere.
it was
More,
just
I don't know.
it was just one of those things that was like, I'm kind of interested to see if anything else kind of develops about him. Um, but
Yeah,
I like the fact that I mean, he just doesn't give a fuck about anything. It's just like the most nihilistic character that exists. Like, oh,
yeah,
oh, I'll kill my family. I don't care.
yeah. He's an asshole, but that's why I like him. He's just evil. But anyway, we got sidetracked. My favorite character in season one, like I said earlier, this is gonna be really weird because it's very specific, and it's only young Rhaenyra.
Hmm.
I actually started out not really liking young Rhaenyra, but by the time they did the time jump and we got the new Rhaenyra, I I just was so sad. I wanted her back so much. I loved her. I think she was fantastic in every single way. And the new Rhaenyra, I just don't like her. Um, I don't know if it's an acting thing. I don't know if it's just that the character really once the time jump happens, Rhaenyra doesn't do anything except give birth. And so that might be part of it. I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of people kind of felt this way because a lot of people really liked younger Rhaenyra as actress, that she did a really good job. So it was really hard to follow up with her. But I think the older Rhaenyra um, has done a good job in her own way, but the character, yeah, the character is a little bit all over the place sometimes. So it's hard to,
I think she'll really come into her own in season two, the older Rhaenyra,
yeah,
because she'll really kind of have to. But with the ending of the season one, where you just saw like her face, you're
yeah,
like, oh, now she means business now. And I think maybe that's like when when I'll start to kind of maybe like her. I don't know. I just really liked Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra, and I think that's funny because the first episode or two, I was actually really quite down on her. Um, I guess she's just one of those people for me anyway, where like I was just looking at her, I'm just like, really her? I just something about her that like I'm not buying or I don't like. I couldn't pin it down. And I was being stupid because by episode three, I think I was like all in on her. I was like, man, she's just so good. I love this girl. And I didn't know because Fire and Blood, I didn't know that there was time jumps and stuff. So it was I think the time jump happens in episode six because it's halfway through. So I think it was like at the end of episode four, and I was watching a podcast on YouTube. It was like a recap of the episode. And these people that were doing the podcast they've read Fire and Blood. And they were doing like a spoiler-free recap thing that wasn't ruining anything that was to come. But they said that, well, after next episode, that's when the time jump's going to happen and the actresses are going to change. And I was like, what?
yeah.
And then I found out that the actresses were changing, and my heart sank, Phil.
Mm.
I only knew I only had one episode left with her, and I was just like devastated.
Yeah, I think it was a little harder to deal with those time jumps because those were kind of the main characters. Well, like Kristen Cole, I think he's a interesting. I think he's probably my second favorite character because he kind of fills the fallen paladin, fallen knight kind of trope, I guess, that I've always kind of liked, where like somebody's honorable and good and idealistic and does what they're supposed to do kind of thing, and then he gets fucked over and he's like, all right, now I'm a piece of shit. And
Yeah,
apparently he's a bigger piece of shit in the book, I've heard, which seems to be the case with almost everybody. But um i like I like the idea of like he was willing to give up everything to run away with Rhaenyra, but she's like, seriously, you think I'm gonna do that?
yeah. My God, we gotta just
You're my fuck toy, just like hang out
yeah.
over there.
We need to talk about that for a second. How much worse of a social move could she have done? I mean, really, that was just so bad. And she was young, so like, you get it. People when you're young, you're stupid. Like, so she could have handled that way better and could have had like him as an ally during this whole thing. But she was pretty brutal in the way she treated him, I think. And it's too bad because I really liked the dynamic they had, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, when I've always been a big fan of that trope that like the really good knight who would do anything for like whoever they're protecting, and they're just awesome. You know, he really reminded me in the beginning of Sir Barristan Selmy
Oh
from
yeah,
Game
yeah.
of Thrones, who I always loved. And I was like, yeah, this guy's gonna be awesome. And then he wasn't awesome. So now I love him because he fits the whole like uh kind of like a Lannister type character now.
Yeah.
And I love him still, but for different reasons. And he's such a good character. My one gripe about him in particular, compared to every other character, the time jump happens. He looks the same as he did. Everyone else is old, like looks older.
He has good genes, I guess.
Apparently, the knight that
Um,
never ages.
I forgot. I forgot a character that I don't know how I forgot him, but a
I know
character
you.
that I didn't like so much at the beginning, and then by the end, he was like. I think this had a lot to do with the actor. Was
Hmm.
Viserys like that last episode he's in? Like if he doesn't win an Emmy for that, then fuck the Emmys. Like that was like excellent all around, acting and like the
His
scenes and
descent
everything
into
were,
death was,
yeah, everything was so awesome. And I think
yeah.
that's probably either my favorite episode or second favorite episode was the
Was that episode 9?
that's
Episode 8,
episode 8, yeah.
where
Because
he
when he
actually
walked,
gets out of bed.
yeah, he walks into the hall and there's that awesome
Yes,
scene where he's like limping up the thing.
spectacular acting. That's the we already talked about off the podcast our favorite episode, so I already know that this was coming. It's not my favorite episode. It's not one of my two favorite episodes, but this was one of your two favorite episodes, and I definitely understand why, because that moment was, oof, it was one of those moments where you just want to like grin ear to ear, or you are grinning ear to ear. Honestly, I mean, I was the whole time beaming because I was like, this is an amazing, awesome thing, and it was such a great scene to see him finally kind of be like, you guys need to fuck off because I'm actually the king.
Yeah, and I like that. I love the scene where they're all sitting at dinner and it's like the awkward Thanksgiving family dinner where it's like, all right,
Yes.
everybody's gonna get along. Just fucking sit here and eat. We're gonna get along.
Yes, I that whole scene was amazing. Um Everything about it. You know, there's actually a amazing slight in that scene that I did not pick up on because until I watched a recap of the episode. And that was when Aemond called Rhaenyra's sons strong. And
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that until after the episode aired. I was like, why is that an insult? I forgot that
they're
the
so
connection. Yeah.
strong. Yeah, so that one, I think all of my favorite episodes are actually at the end uh of the
Yours are
series.
8 and 10, right?
Yeah, I'd say 8 and 10. I think 10 is mostly because of the dragon thing bumped that up
Oh
really
man,
big.
that was, yeah, such an epic
And
moment.
I like
But
the tension of it. That episode had a lot of tension in regards to everything, not just that scene, but like Damon, trying to get Rhaenyra to fight, and the two sides basically declaring that they're the rightful rulers, and um, you know, all that kind of stuff was really good. If I didn't choose 10, one of the early episodes I really liked. I think maybe episode 2. That was a real.
I
that was a really good one for me when he steals the egg and Rhaenyra shows up with her dragon and she's like, "Hey, give us the fucking egg back."
Right.
I really like that one.
Is episode 2 the one where the her and Damon end up hooking up? Well, I guess it was actually her and Kristen Cole. Or
No,
maybe that was episode 3.
that's a later one. This one is
Okay.
episode two's where she first chooses Kristen to be the new
Oh, right.
Kingsguard.
That was a really good moment, by the way.
Yeah, so that episode kind of to me got me hooked on the show more, I think. Uh,
Surprised that's so high on your ratings.
yeah, I mean, I'd have to go back and look at all of them individually, but I remember that one probably kept me watching the show. That's why I rank it
Okay.
a little bit higher.
So yours are 8, 10, and then whatever the or
Two,
episode 2.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So mine is 10, obviously. What a spectacular episode. And then my second favorite episode, it would be um episode 7 because oh my god, all the kid drama. I was not expecting all of the stuff that happened in that episode.
Yeah, that's a great one also.
Yeah, I think that the whole Kristen Cole being an asshole in the training yard part,
Yeah.
I love that. That was I think that was in episode 7. That might have been earlier. But anyway, it leads up into this episode where you have like Kristen Cole being an asshole to those kids, and then you have like behind the scenes uh the kids like also being an asshole to each other. And I loved when they got into the fight underground. I think it was like I couldn't tell if it was like in the dragon area or like just outside it, but they were talking about how Aemon doesn't have a dragon, and they offered him, I can't remember, was that a pig?
Yeah, there was a pig
Yeah,
they
with wings.
yeah.
Uh, but my God, when they cut, when Luke cut Aemon's eye off or out, whatever. Oh man, I I did not expect that, and I thought that was so brutal and also somewhat justified with how Aemon was acting there. Although at the same time, they'd kind of been an asshole to Aemon too, so it's kind of warranted both ways, which is when you know you have like a really good conflict, I think.
It reminds me of like a schoolyard fight where like people are fucking around and just kind of pushing each other, and then like one kid throws a rock and hits another kid in the face and like cracks his skull open or
Yeah.
something, and everybody's like, oh fuck, you're okay, don't tell mom."
Yeah, and definitely not supervised at all in the way that they might should have been in, you know. But
Don't play
story of
with
the times, I
knives.
guess.
Don't play with
Yeah, that
knives,
part was
kids.
just so crazy. So that's why that's so high on my list. I just really love that part. And then the whole confrontation between Rhaenyra and Allison, and how Allison actually like cuts Rhaenyra. This that was so awesome. And I don't know. I I guess I will also make note of my third favorite episode being. This might be a controversial pick. I really liked episode 9. Uh, more so for the like the tension and the music than the actual story, because the whole time I was like,
Yeah, I like
okay,
that
can
one.
we see the other side? But I really loved the new music in that one, and they played it so often, and it just every time they played it, it really elevated like the intrigue of that episode, I feel like.
Yeah, I think I like that episode also, but like Aegon himself, I wasn't invested enough in him to really care if he was found or not. yet or not.
Right,
I
yeah.
know like he's gonna suck as a king basically, but like who's gonna find Aegon first? It's like I understand what they were trying to do. To like if Alyssa gets him first, she's gonna be able to decide what to do, and if Otto finds him first, he's gonna decide what to do. Um, I like that element of it, but yeah, the overall, I wouldn't say this is lower episode for me, but probably in the middle, I guess.
Yeah.
I really can't
Speaking,
think of any like really like just shit episodes where I was like, man, this episode sucked. I mean, I can't think of any
no,
like
I think
offhand.
maybe there were a couple episodes that were like, I wish a little bit more happened. I think episode one was a little slower, but it wasn't bad. I mean, you had like the tourney, which was okay. I
Yeah.
think the good thing about episode one was the whole birth scene. That was just so brutal.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I love that scene.
I think
It
that
was,
turned off a lot of people. Also, I remember
yep.
seeing online people are like, "Yep, I'm not watching this show." Like after
Yeah, and I was
episode
like,
one,
I had the opposite. I was like, what? That was so brutal and so like realistic. What are you talking about?
and that's not even the final birth scene in the show. That's horrifically
Yes, we didn't
displayed.
talk about that, but I think her name is Lena. Is that right? That might have
Damon's
been
wife.
wrong. Yeah, yeah, I think it's Lena.
Yeah, Lena. I
Anyway,
think.
she goes and gets incinerated by her dragon because she doesn't want to suffer that fate. Whew,
Yeah, it's
that was a good scene.
yeah, it's like I don't want to die during childbirth, so I'm just gonna go outside and let my dragon torch me.
Right.
All right,
Now,
cool.
I I do have a small gripe about that scene though. It's the way it's filmed doesn't make all that much sense to me. I let it go because it was a really cool scene, but she's laying in bed trying to have this baby, and Damon's like there, and then he takes the um I just blanked on the word. What's the word for the doctor and the what is it? Magister?
Eighth Maester.
Maester. There you go. Takes the maester off to the side, starts talking about, what's going on, the potential, like what maybe potential ways to like help get the baby out or whatever. And the maester's like, yeah, she's screwed. She's going to die. And they're like 6 feet away from the bed. And then she gets up and leaves, and no one noticed for a decent amount of time because when Damon realizes she's gone and chases after her, she's already like really far towards where the dragon is, and he's like, "Oh my god!" And then she burns. How the hell did no one notice? Like, but small thing. I just thought it was kind of funny because, and I might be misremembering here, but I'm pretty sure there were the not just the maester, but the a couple girls there too.
I think they were just maybe thought she's taking a walk. And let her walk it off. She'll be fine.
She's about to die, but yeah, let her have her last walk, I guess.
Walk it off. Uh, yeah, I think that covers all of our favorite episodes and characters. Uh, lastly, let's give our final thoughts about the show.
Oh wait. One
Or
thing, Phil. We gotta talk about one thing
yes,
before we get to final thoughts. There's one moment that I hated so much, and I just need to get your thoughts on this. No, we didn't talk about this moment yet.
all right.
It's about Rhaenys. She's imprisoned, and then she is brought to the king of Aegon. Sorry, I blanked on the name. along with all the other citizens. And during the crowning, I don't know why I said kinging, whatever. Uh, she slips away, gets her dragon, bursts through the floor. All of this is fine. And it shows them trying to close the door. And if she had just flown out and escaped because they were closing the door, trying to trap her in there, I would have bought the scene and been happy with it. Instead, yeah, the dumbest moment I think in history of the show, which I guess isn't much, is only one season. But she aims her dragon's like face at all the people that are causing all the problems in the realm, who imprisoned her, who moments later she's going to declare war against, basically when she sides with Rhaenyra, and she doesn't incinerate them. Now I get it; she can't incinerate them because of plot armor and the story, but just don't have the moment, right? Like just have her fly away.
This is how I interpreted it, and maybe the reasoning behind it. I don't know if this is true or not, but I think what Rhaenys, is that her name?
Rhaenys, I think.
Rhaenys. We're really struggling with these fucking names. Rainy, because when I watch the show, I don't think of how to pronounce their names or like what or like late like afterwards. It's like as I'm watching, I hear their names, but afterwards I just forget. But I think at that point, I think she doesn't know who she's going to side with. And I actually think she doesn't want to be involved, period. I think she wants to just go back to Driftmark and just let them fucking kill each other. I think that's the way she looks at it, where she wants Corliss and her family just to be in isolation and let these two fucking kill each other. I think that's why she did that, because she didn't want to uh bring their wrath, bring any wrath upon her later for any reason, because even if she killed like everyone sitting there, she would be like, you know could because could potentially be uh hunted down or whatever for just killing like a whole group of Targaryens. So what I felt was she was saying like, okay, here I am. I could have just killed all you fuckers. Remember this moment later. That's
Okay,
how I'm
so
interpreting it.
I get what you're saying, but I do want to push back, and this is why. So I think that you have a point in what you're saying, because for the most part, Rainey's is very like, I'll do what Corliss wants, and she's done that. We saw early in the show, Corliss was like, no, we have to push for the crown, and basically Corliss is why their kids are dead. But then we get the scene where Corliss is back. He's in bed. He's being nursed back to health by her, and she's like, just escaped. And she's like, we're doing things my way now, dude, and we have to side with Rhaenyra, and you're doing that. And he's like, fine. So she's the reason they side with Rhaenyra, because I don't know that Corliss necessarily wanted to, but he was convinced because his aspirations to the throne kind of screwed their family. And so now Rainey's is like, well, now we're doing things differently.
Well,
So like,
I think Rainey's is like, I almost think she's doing keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer type thing. I think she still thinks that Rhaenyra and Daemon are responsible for her son being killed. So I think ultimately she's probably going to fuck Rhaenyra.
I wouldn't be surprised if
I
they
think, I
if she
think that's
does
why they
betray them.
positioned her that way. I think.
But you also have to consider this: her, what is it? Her grandchildren. are betrothed to Rhaenyra's children. So she kind of has a vested interest in siding with them before anyway.
I
So
mean, it can be a Ned Stark, you know, I can't kill you with my dragon because it's not honorable thing. I don't know. Uh,
maybe, but
I
man,
think Corliss and uh,
Rainy,
Rainey's have always been on the show as kind of a wild card. Like you don't know what they're going to do at any given moment.
it's true.
So I feel like they're that they're they're there for that purpose to be the uh deciding factor. So I think you have the black faction, you have the green faction, then you have the Valerians, and the Valerians, whichever way the wind blows,
Yeah, I
is
could definitely see them
yeah.
flipping back and forth, honestly. But uh they're they'd have to be careful since they're well, now one of their daughters was freed, I guess, since Luke is dead. Uh and they never actually got married. So
Well,
they
yeah,
do have the one married to I forgot his name, but the older son.
it's just kind of weird that like she thinks that Rhaenyra and Daemon are responsible for killing Laenor, and they saw Daemon kill Corliss's brother in public. So it's kind of
True, but
like,
to be
you know,
fair, I don't think they care because remember when Corliss learned and he was like, "Yeah, well, he kind of had it coming."
yeah, but you never know. It could be he's my blood.
Right,
You know how the show is.
right. Though to be fair, his brother was trying to basically take over his position. So I don't know if he'll be mad about his brother's death, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of ways that this
I think we'll
relationship.
I think we'll learn why Rhaenys didn't torch them all in season 2. I think it'll become more clear.
Oh, so some fact that I wanted to put out there for you. The person uh, that wrote that scene, controversial writer, I guess. I don't know exactly why, but I believe she was a pretty big writer for season 8. Uh, anyway, she came up with that scene, and I think I read this article that said that she was like wanting to show the bond between mothers or something like that. And the reason why Rainey's couldn't kill them was because of the fact that Allison was also a mother. And I'm like, okay, but Allison just betrayed you. But whatever. Anyway, this writer was just hired for season 2 as well, and I was seeing a little bit of backlash online somewhere. Like, are you kidding? Why are you hiring this writer for this? She's only done bad stuff. I didn't research it enough to actually know what she wrote or didn't write, but if we get more scenes like that in season 2, I'm just not going to be happy. I
Mm.
just thought it was such a dumb scene, and I get it. Maybe. No, I don't get it. What am I saying? I don't fucking get it. It was a dumb scene. Just have her fly away.
Yeah, I don't know if it's planting a seed or what, but
I don't know. I hope we have some sort of like reference to this scene in season 2. Like maybe Rhaenys is like talking to Corlys and she's like, "Man, I had this opportunity to fucking torch them all and I didn't take it and I regret it or something." And then
yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
like, "Okay, cool," because it was just such a politically stupid move. I think. I mean, it was all the people that mattered right there. Could have killed them all. She could have taken the throne for herself at that point. There wasn't anyone to contest it. I mean, yes, Rhaenyra would go to war, but like, I mean, in the if she took over the throne, she would have all of the Valarians behind her, and then you know all of the the king's soldiers would then kind of be transferred to her. Uh, Now, I don't think she did that because she's seen what going for the throne has done to their family already. But at the very least, she could have torched them all and then installed Rhaenyra and been, no war.
Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens, I guess.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts. My final thoughts are probably one of the best first seasons of any show I've watched. I really can't think of any other first season of a show that I was this excited about. Uh, Other than the original Game of Thrones, maybe, but even that first season had issues too, I guess, if I went back and watched it.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, as far as like dark fantasy, epic, you can't go wrong with this kind of show.
Did you see season 8 of Game of Thrones still?
No, I said this kind of show. So not necessarily any specific season, but like overall.
Okay.
Because like for me, Game of Thrones overall is still an awesome show. Even the way it, I mean, the way it's like we were talking about Lost, how you said Lost sucked at the end, but you should still watch it because it's an awesome show. That's how Game of Thrones is for me. Like I feel like even if you hate the ending, the whole show is still really good.
Yeah. I think upon rewatch, Lost is a bit more palatable, but uh like I don't see a world where I rewatch Game of Thrones and am not like sick at how stupid the ending is.
Well, I think this show rejuvenated, definitely rejuvenated the fan base as far as like the people that gave it a chance. Because I know specifically that there are people that said fuck Game of Thrones forever. I'm never watching anything related to Game of Thrones again, and I feel like those
Right.
people are missing out the fact that they're so adamant about it. But um, that's their choice. So
Yeah, so my final thoughts would be what an amazing show, honestly. And if I were to rate the show out of 10, I don't really like rating anything. It's hard to do for me. But in this circumstance, if I was to base my rating off prior expectations of the show and how down I was on it, and then how much I enjoyed the show overall, and also my hopes for the future of the show, which are very optimistic. I think that this will easily become one of my favorite shows of all time. And how much I really enjoyed the characters and story and how invested I was to watch it every week. And even though there was some slower plotline stuff, uh, even the slow stuff I really enjoyed. I was super invested in. And so for me personally, I would say 10 out of 10. That's really how invested I am. I really like the season. I cannot wait for season 2. I couldn't wait for each episode after the first couple aired. I think the first one aired, and I was like, oh, I'm excited to continue. Saw the second episode, and second or third episode, I can't remember, but something happened. And then it was like, oh man, I have to wait until next Sunday. This sucks.
yeah.
So I just think that, like you said, for a first season, it's like a spectacular start, and it has so much promise to it. So I, I even with some of the flaws, I just can't think about much that Like, yeah, you can always think of ways to improve a show or anything, but at what point do you have to like say, okay, that was like good enough to be like a 10 out of 10 for me? And I think this show does it for me. What about you?
Uh, well, 10 out of 10 for me would be uh Breaking Bad.
Well, we
So
don't talk about Breaking Bad.
I talk about it. You don't talk about it.
Breaking Bad was a 6 out of 10 probably for me. Controversial, I know.
So I would give this a 9 out of 10 with, I think, almost perfect. Um, there were a few things that uh, lower it a little bit for me, and most of it has to do with confusion of what's happening or who is this and who is that. And
Do you think
it,
that would have been alleviated with the time jumps being less frequent?
yeah, I think if there were maybe 12 episodes instead of 10, it would be a 10 out of 10. Maybe if they would have extended
Yeah.
some of the stuff a little bit more. But I mean, I'd say like it's a 9.5 out of 10 even. If I can give a point 5.
Yeah, I don't see why not. You
Just
know,
a
I might
slight,
actually agree with you. 9.5 out of 10
yeah.
because there are a few things that would improve it for sure. But yeah, I'm sticking with a 10 out of 10 though because I really it's just so good. It's so good. And I don't I'm super excited. The thing that sucks though is that we have to wait over a year for season 2.
That's a To me, that's a good feeling though. I think when people say it sucks that I have to wait until blah blah blah, it's a good feeling to have for a show because then you're, even a year passes, you're still going to be excited for it. Um,
Yeah, it'd be nice if they had had the second season ready to go for next year. But I don't know why. I'm guessing maybe COVID affected the
yeah,
production of
th-
season 2.
what I think happened was I think they weren't sure how successful this was going to be, so they didn't want to greenlight a season two, and they were till, and then after that first episode, like broke all the records for HBO. They're like, season two, there it is, greenlit.
Yeah, you mentioned the Game of Thrones thing that didn't return. I think most of them have returned because I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that they were hitting like 25 million an episode, which is like absolute bonkers.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So I think for season two, I heard there are no time jumps, so that will solve that problem. It's
Yeah.
all the same actors, no recastings. Everyone's going to be the same. So I think we'll probably have some new characters introduced, I would imagine. Um, but I like that we kind of we kind of know everything that's going to happen because Fire and Blood is the source material, and so there's no like waiting for Martin to finish the next book or anything like that. All the source material's there. They just have to interpret it. And I actually think this is an excellent way for screenwriters, TV show producers to develop shows because they have a rough outline basically of everything that's going to happen, and then they have to do is just interpret it for the screen. So it makes it so much easier than adapting a whole novel because really they're only adapting like points of time, and then how they interpret that's really up to them. So I think that's a cool way to uh, make a show. Just like, okay, here's a fake history, and we'll just come up with what we'll fill in the blanks like as we need to. So I'm hoping the Dance of Dragons is spectacular as we suspect it to be.
Yeah, I think that we have a really good shot of just absolutely spectacular season two.
And if not, then we'll make an episode about it and bitch about it, I'm sure. Hey, if we're still recording in a year, that'd be pretty impressive, huh?
That would be. I think if there's any consolation, though, I don't think there's a way that they could possibly screw it up more than season 8 of Game of Thrones.
Well,
I guess we'll see.
I mean, a couple of years from now, we may be saying, man, I mean, they can't screw up this show any worse than they screwed up House of Dragon season 2 and season 8 of Game of
I
Thrones.
you know what? I just said that, and then I was thinking, oh great, we're gonna get off this podcast, and the first article I'm gonna see on online is gonna be D&D slated to return for season 2 of House of the Dragon.
No, I think HBO.
Oh, they're never bringing them back for this. That would never happen. The PR would be a nightmare.
But I think some people have said like Game of Thrones is a cultural phenomenon. Like when it came out and when it ended, it was basically no one was talking about it anymore. It was just like that's it. And
Well, they
this
really fucked it up.
and this show has brought it back to the limelight again, where everyone's excited about it again. So
Yeah,
it's a good feeling as a fantasy fan because more of these type shows will be made and fantasy writers will hopefully get their novels adapted and we'll have a whole lot more of this to look forward to, not just Game of Thrones material but
yeah.
other stuff.
I was not a big fan. Actually, I only watched one episode of Rings of Power, but I always said to, I hope that it succeeds because even though I hated Rings of Power, the more successful fantasy shows we have, the more that are going to be adapted and made, and that's just good for any fan of fantasy. They might make some shows that some of us might not like, but the more successful that those ones are, the more likely you are to get ones that you're going to enjoy. So I really just hope that every fantasy show that they do that's a big budget one just blows up in popularity because it's only good for everyone.
And with that, I think we can bring this episode to a close.
It was a good one.
And if you're listening for the first time, this was the Rough Characters podcast. We're going to be doing more and more episodes. Mostly we talk about some various fantasy topics and games, movies, TV shows, writing, all sorts of shit. So if you're interested in fantasy stuff and sci-fi, we're here for you. And to plug our stuff, you can buy John's novel, The Trials of Ashmount. Ashmount, fucked your name up. All this Viserys and Viserius and Gyserius and shit. I'm fucking normal names up now. The Trials of Ashmount you can buy. And in addition, you can follow what's happening over at negative-hp.com, where I have various material and the episodes will also be posted there, in addition to all the other various podcasting places. And if you are interested in darker fiction, fantasy, on Facebook, we have the Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers group. Come on over there and join us and chat about your favorite dragon from Salaxes or Garaxes or Galaxies.
But no spoilers.
No spoilers, maybe. Maybe changing this in the future. Who knows? Until next time, make sure you don't fuck anyone you're related to. The end. Incest is bad. That's all.